As promised, here's a Q&A that I was gonna film earlier. It's a little late now, it's like 10:30, but hey, better late than never. I'll probably end up splitting this up because I feel like it's gonna be long. All right, so let's get started. I posted it on this Instagram photo earlier today, this morning. Focus, please. Focus. It won't, there we go. All right, starting from the top. Guide care, how is your rep range when you train muscle groups 2 to 3 times a week, and what percentage do you try to keep your workouts compound based? I vary my rep range, so I train max height, so I do a 5x5 1 week, 4x8 1 week, and 3 sets of 10 to 12, and that's only for the main compound lifts. The rest of the lifts are more hypertrophy focused, anywhere between say like 6 and 20 reps. And then I would say like half the workout is spent on compound lifts and the other half on also compound lifts, but more isolation lifts as well. I don't know, probably wasn't a good explanation. If you eat more carbs than you need in your daily intake, but still in a calorie deficit, will you gain fat or still lose? If you're in a deficit, you'll lose weight. You know, if you eat a lot more carbs, you might store more glycogen and you might have a very short-term spike in weight, but you'll lose fat if you're in a calorie deficit. Getting leaner than lean, lower calorie deficit. I guess Texas Iron here is asking if how do you get like single-digit body fat? And you just need more time dieting, more time spent in a calorie deficit. As you diet, your maintenance goes down, so you need to continually adjust your calories once you start to hit a plateau, or do more cardio. When am I coming to visit Pump Chaser's gym to train with Hector HM Fitness, have sushi and cut a rug? LMAO. Soon, man. I hope really soon. Definitely, I'll be in Dallas in June for the Europa with PE Science, but I'd like to get out to Dallas Fort Worth area sooner than that. We'll see what happens. My question to you, Ad Garong says, why did you leave your previous job to pursue a full-time gig on social media, YouTube, and online coaching? The reason why is because I just could no longer do both efficiently. There was just way too much workload to try to do both, and I make more money, obviously, coaching than I did at my day job, even though I love my day job. So I just had to make that decision. After I had to put coaching on pause last year because I was just too busy, I was like, why would I do that? Like, I make more money coaching than my full-time job. It makes no sense to actually have to put coaching on hold just because I couldn't handle the workload at the time. So, and I'm the type of person that I'll never take on more clients than I can handle, because not only would that stress me out, but it wouldn't be good for the clients either. So yeah, that's the reason why. I was making more money doing this than that, so it was really no choice. What should you do after you reach your genetical limit, Smalik? Well, personally, I don't really think there is a genetic limit. The way it's like an asymptote, you get closer and closer. For example, let's say that there's a door 20 feet away from you. Every year you get halfway to that door. So next year it's 10 feet away. The next year it's 5 feet away. The next year it's 2.5 feet. Eventually you'll be barely moving, but technically you'll never reach that door. So you can't just like reach out and grab it. Do you miss squatting? Yeah, so if you don't know, I have a torn like iliopsoas. I think it's probably the labrum, but MRI said it was like a torn iliopsoas in my left hip. I haven't been able to squat since 2015. I mean, I can squat, it's just as painful. Have you experienced any strength plateaus, and how did you get through them? I really haven't. I mean, obviously, if you're in a deficit, your absolute strength will go down a little bit, but it's all relative to body weight anyway. And as soon as you go back up in weight or get a little fatter, it came right back. So I've always been able to vary my my lifts or my training in order to continue to make gains. So I mean, sometimes it feels pretty slow, but overall, I don't think I've really ever hit a plateau. What advice do you give to people who are new to it all? Learn the compound lifts first. Learn about nutrition. Learn about your own body, and find what you enjoy and what works for you. But I mean, obviously, certain things work just in general. So do the things that work. Are you doing bodybuilding or classic physique? No, I'll probably never do classic physique. I don't compete in the NPC or any of the non-drug tested organizations. Although I said I would like to do a WBFF show, which is not drug tested, but that's in a fitness model category. So you don't have to be huge. And then I'm like, obviously understand that I have a disadvantage since it's not drug tested. But no, I compete in the WNBF, World Natural Bodybuilding Federation, and I do bodybuilding, obviously. What are my thoughts on deloads and taking breaks from the gym from XDLAFX? It's important, especially if you're feeling beat up, if your joints are taking a beating. It's very important to take a deload. With Max Hype, I recommend taking a deload every 7 weeks if you're really pushing yourself hard. But you know, auto regulation is key. If you really feel like you don't need it, then number one, you might not be training hard enough, and number two, you know, then just, you know, be really aware. If you really start to feel beat up, then take one maybe at 10 weeks or 11 weeks or whatever, you know. How often do I train calves? Twice a week, although I've been skipping them recently because I have a foot injury, but I'm gonna train through it. I really should get the foot checked out, but ain't nobody got time for that. And I don't have insurance right now. What's your coaching approach with skinny fat? Although I guess I could go to the VA. I was in the Marines, I'm a veteran. What's your coaching approach with skinny fat? Deficit, maintenance, or a small surplus? That's a great question, and it really depends on the person. If they've been lifting a while and they're just like more skinny than fat, then I would change up their training program, increase their volume, and put them in a small surplus. If they're more fat than skinny and they haven't been training very long, then I would put them in a deficit, also increase their training volume, or just make sure they're training properly, and then you know, go from there. We're just gonna adjust as we go. But obviously, it's a situation or scenario where you need to be patient and you need to figure out, you know, what the proper course of action is. So there's not really like a one size fits all with being skinny fat, because it's gonna vary person to person. Will you be stage ready a couple weeks before your show so you can build into the show, or do you use the last week as a peak week to shed off the last bit? That's from Jordan Hildreth. So the answer to that question is it really depends. So I'm doing several shows. First one in September, then October, then November. The plan will be to continue dieting, because you really never feel as lean as you want to be. At least in my experience, I never have felt like, yes, I'm so lean, I don't need to get any leaner. I've always felt like, you know, I could keep dieting. So that's probably what I'll do. Is September will be slightly worse conditioning than October. October will be better than September. November will hopefully be my best package to date on the world stage for WNBF. Why do you choose not? Sean Trump, why do you choose not to directly train your neck? I guess because I'm lazy. I mean, I'm already training everything else. I mean, I guess I probably should train it. It's pretty small, but you know, whatever. Biggest advice for first-time competitors, maybe something you wish you'd known. It's the same thing I tell everybody: hire a coach. I'm not saying me specifically. You could if you want, but I definitely recommend hiring a coach. It's such a it's a new process. You're getting to body fat levels you've never been to if you actually, you know, get to single-digit body fat on your own. And it starts playing mind games with yourself, and you start second-guessing things. So it's much easier to have a coach who's managing everything for you, and all you have to do is execute. You don't have to think about anything. Plus, you'll be fully prepared. He'll tell you, you know, what you need, like a checklist of everything you need, if it's a good coach, obviously. The best way to get the shred physique, Goldenberg Amit, by dieting, making sure you have enough muscle mass to actually look shredded when you diet down, and being patient, being in a calorie deficit. What is my ultimate goal? My ultimate goal? Nah, I really don't know. I mean, I just want to take care of my family, have a good time, help as many people as I can, and not have to, you know, worry too much about money. You know, doing what you love and having a good life. Would you recommend a keto diet if you're trying to do a lean bulk? No, I really would not recommend a keto diet for gaining at all. You know, it's up to you if that's what you want to do, but carbs really fuel your energy and your performance in the gym. Oh, how did you calculate your macros, and how much cardio are you currently doing? I'm not currently doing any cardio, and I calculated my macros by experience. This is my 4th contest prep, and I did a mini cut last year, so it'll be like my 5th legit diet. So I kind of know where I need to be to lose fat, especially since I'm not doing cardio. How do you age so well? Please reveal your secrets from It's I Shag, bruh. I don't know, man. I guess just genetics, but if you look closely, got a ton of wrinkles. You should probably get more sleep and maybe, I don't know. Best tips for a cut. Be patient, take your time. Don't try to Don't try to create a deficit that you can't adhere to long term. I want to natty as you when I get your age, or even now, to be honest, but natural though. I'm not sure what that means. In recent times, last year or so, I suppose, what's the highest your macros have been? Asking because I expected your prep macros to be a lot higher than they are. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't actually track macros when I'm not dieting. I eat intuitively, basically just in moderation, and I weigh myself almost daily in order to track the trend and see like if I'm eating too much or too little, and then I'll just adjust based on that. But that comes with experience. I don't recommend that for everybody. That'd be something that you'd want to work towards. A lot of people try to do that and they'll end up gaining fat too quickly in the off season. I feel like I was able to gain at an appropriate rate of 1 to 2 pounds per month, which was pretty much my goal, and I did it without tracking, so I was pretty happy about that. When did you start bodybuilding? The Brian Fernandez. I would say, like, I guess you could count in 2013 I did my first show in first contest prep. I did 4 shows that season. 2012 I started like working out seriously, training seriously. Have you ever considered yourself to be fat or out of shape? Jason Sullivan. Yeah, I posted pics of when I've felt fat and out of shape. One time was from a torn labrum, so I didn't train for 6 months. And then other times I've just like been towards the end of a bulk and not felt, great about it. What's better between shredding and gaining? Samya Veer Chahan. I mean, it really depends. I guess when you're cutting, a lot of people would rather be gaining, and when you're gaining, you'd rather be cutting. So it just depends on the season, I guess. Currently in a slight caloric surplus, mainly eating clean carb sources. Oh, I responded to this, that I don't believe in clean or dirty foods. How do I grow pecs like yours? Well, mine are specific to me because they're my genetics and my insertions, but you can improve your pecs by training chest twice a week, hitting them from all angles, flat, incline, decline. I personally don't hit decline pretty much at all anymore because just the way my insertions are, they insert, really low, and it gives me that like thick chest look that either people hate or like. I mean, it's whatever either way. I'm working a lot on my upper chest, so I'm hitting a lot more incline. Favorite anime? From Cyan7. That's a good question. I mean, there's a few that are in my like top 5 list. I really like Erased was one of the best animes I've ever seen. Death Note is like one of the smartest, like the way it was written, everything just like very intriguing, and me and my daughter binge watched all of Death Note in like 3 days, I think. And then I don't know, there's so many good ones. Cowboy Bebop is like classic. Samurai Champloo, so good. But if I had to say like just one, I don't know, maybe Cowboy Bebop. Deadpool or Flash? I would say Deadpool, just mainly because I like Marvel way more than DC. How do you deal with loose skin after weight loss if surgery is not an option? That's kind of my fear. To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't really have much experience with that. I would just say that it's better to get into the best shape of your life and have loose skin than to be out of shape and not have loose skin. So I would continue to work towards your goals and not worry about the loose skin at the end. And also, if you do lose weight at a an appropriate rate and not like a crash diet weight, you'll be less likely to have as much loose skin at the end. How aggressive would you take your deficit for a mini cut lasting 3 to 6 weeks? Maybe like 1,000 calorie deficit, so I could lose closer to 2 pounds a week. But that really never works out for me, simply because my maintenance is relatively low because I'm small, like I'm 5'6", 160 pounds right now. And so 1,000 calorie deficit is tough because I sit here on a computer all day and I work on coaching email for clients. So it's not realistic for me to even try to create 1,000 calorie deficit, it feels like, without a lot of cardio. How did you get into natural bodybuilding, and what advice would you give for someone trying to compete naturally? I basically just saw Matt Augus's YouTube, and I didn't even know that natural bodybuilding was a thing. I didn't really know much about bodybuilding in general, but I saw that he hired a company called 3DMJ, and they were like relatively local to me when I was in the Bay Area, so I hired them also, and the rest is history. The advice that I would give same advice as earlier, is to hire a coach, and then number 2, find a natural bodybuilding show and, you know, prep for it and just do it. What's your mental approach when you confront an obstacle or challenge in front of you, whether it's at the gym or personal life? I guess I try not to stress it. Like, if it's an obstacle and it's something that I can't control, then I try not to stress about it and I let it just kind of roll off my back. If it's something that I can actually confront and fix and, you know, do something to handle, then, you know, I'll try to figure that out and work towards it. And setting goals and setting small incremental goals definitely helps keep me on track for the long run. How do you battle the feels of wanting to be cutting when bulking and wanting to be bulking when cutting? It's funny, I just talked about it. This is my biggest struggle. It seems every time I bulk to a certain point, I'm ready to go back down. Every time I get down to a certain point, I'm ready to bulk back up. I'm 5'6", 150 average right now, so very similar in weight and height to you. From the life of Dalton. Yeah, it's tough, man. There's definitely the feels. I bulked through the summer last summer, so I know exactly how you feel, and I wanted to be shredded, but I wasn't. But I knew that my long-term goals superseded my short-term goals, so I said, YOLO. I want to have the best physique that I can have next year, so I'm going to do what I need to do this year. And I was still able to make social media gains. I was still able to have a great time. I was able to eat what I wanted versus being like moody or hungry because I was dieting. So it was worth it, definitely worth it. And I recommend that you commit to whichever one you're going to do, and don't try to do either one too fast. You try to cut too fast, you start feeling small, you start losing strength, and you start second guessing yourself. You start gaining too fast, you start gaining too much fat, you start second guessing yourself. So be direct and go for it, but don't move too quickly in either direction. What do you, and also don't worry as much about the scale as you do about the gains you make in the gym, performance wise. The weight on the bar should be going up, not just the weight on the scale. What do you consider the best supplementation around workout while in carb protein diet, and what is timing and content of meal after workout? I'm questions a little bit like too detailed. To me, it's not super important. Like, you know, the basics: creatine, protein, a good pre-workout. I prefer Prolific from P Science, and post-workout I have 2 scoops of whey. Do you recommend to train every muscle group twice per week? Yes. Best training split? Come on, man, you already know, max hype. I want to see what you eat on poverty macros in your secret foods. I drink Tabasco, just kidding. Doug Jen. Yeah, I post them a lot. Like all my preps, I document it on YouTube, so they're all there. And I do have, like, I wouldn't say secret foods because I share them obviously, but you know, 96.4 beef double cheeseburgers, Big Mac salad. Like, these things definitely help keep you full and hit those cravings when you're in a deep deficit and the world feels like it's ending as your stomach eats you alive. What is your take on genetics in bodybuilding? Well, they're literally one of the most important things in bodybuilding. So, you know, you can always improve upon yourself regardless of if someone else is starting out in a much better position than you are. So, you know, try not to worry too much about it. Yucky Lovato, what's your arm lengthening routine? I don't know, baby. Long arms don't care. Looking great, Chris. Those max height gains. What are your go-to Supps when deep in contest prep? Especially when training really early in the morning and getting a few hours of sleep. This is from Ibrahim Nino. So for me, I take Prolific, I drink energy drinks, and I'm just not a big fan of coffee, but sometimes in prep, when I was working at Test World, I would even drink coffee in the morning, but even though I'm not a huge fan of it. The main thing though is to try to get better sleep and just, you know, try to grind through, push yourself, because that's when it really counts. Infinite Vision 88 has a great question. Where does fat go? And I'm assuming he means like when you burn fat, where does it go? So your body converts your body fat to energy, and then you use it for energy, and then you oxidize and then respirate it out. That's where it goes. Who's your favorite bodybuilder? They can be from any time. I don't know. I don't really have a favorite bodybuilder. I don't know. It's a tough question. Who's your favorite bodybuilder? Let me know. What shows you're planning to do this year? Let's do Muscle Mayhem from How You Lift and Eric, my boy from 3DMJ. I would love to do the Mayhem, but it's in July, and I want to compete in November. So trying to get stage ready in July and then hold that conditioning, or take a break and then come back for November is just too much. So I'm doing the natural, I think it's called the Pro Universe is the pro version, and Natural Mania is the amateur version. That's the show that I won my pro card at in the WNBF in 2015. So I'm doing that same show, but as a pro this year in New York. And then I think there's another show in October I want to do, depending on how I look and feel. And then Worlds in November. Where are we at? When bulking, how can you tell if you're building muscle or just getting fat? If your strength is going up, that's a great indication that you're gaining muscle. And if you're taking it slow and the scale is moving, 1 to 2 pounds a month versus like a pound a week, then you also have a much better chance that you're actually gaining muscle and not just fat. Well, I mean, you still be gaining both. Literally trying to be like you with the same vascularity at 145. Oh, that wasn't a question, that was a comment. Thanks, man. From Henry Joshai Gutierrez. Joshy. I guess it's Joshy. How to grow your online coaching business in terms of making client check-ins and explaining the concept of macros to them. That's a pretty in-depth question that I would probably make an entire video on, and it's a great idea, so I'll do that for you. That's from Rock Hard Fitness. Why does everyone less than 150 pounds think you're on gear? Because they have no idea what is capable if you train for, me going on 7 years straight with consistency, with barely above average muscle building genetics. If anything, I would say pretty close to average. I mean, I'm not the biggest dude, but yeah, and they just have no concept. If you go to any like pro natural bodybuilding show and you see these guys, and then you compare it to someone like me who, like, I did a pro show, I was like 5th out of 6. So not to say that everybody that does drugs looks great, because there's plenty of people that do drugs and look terrible, and there's people that are natural and look great. So, you never really know. But, I mean, I know that I'm natural, and I know that I compete in drug tested bodybuilding competition. So, I don't know. People are just naive. Oh, and because I have veins, and people think veins mean drugs. What other training do you engage in or like to have fun with, like kettlebells, calisthenics, other sporting activities? Not many other sporting activities at the moment. Bodybuilding is the number one that I do right now, but I also like poker and video games and movies and TV shows and comic books. Supersetting food is my favorite. What about bodybuilding motivates you? How do you see it in the grand scheme of life? I just like pushing myself and seeing myself go to a level that I didn't expect to be able to. Like, when I first got stage ready, like, I didn't know if I would look good, at single digit body fat. I didn't know, you just don't really have any concept. And then when you get there and you see it, you're like, wow, it's amazing. And then you just want to look better next time. So you take an off season and, work hard to build muscle and then do it all over again. I don't know, I just like the process. What does your macro split look like? High carb, high fat? I generally prefer higher carb and lower fat, but I'm pretty sedentary. It doesn't make sense at this point in the diet anyway. So right now I'm 55, so pretty moderate on everything. 55 fat, 175 carbs, 175 protein. A lot of people would say that's low carb, but it's really not. I mean, it's pretty moderate considering. What rep ranges do you use? I already talked about rep ranges. Why didn't I buy the PS4 at Target? Because I barely had time to play the Xbox One. So once like Spider-Man comes out, then I'll get the PS4, or maybe The Last of Us 2, whichever comes out first. But for now, it doesn't make sense. And I'll probably get the PS4 Pro because I heard it's sick. How did you pull off getting such a following on social media? Any advice on how to start? That's also a great question. I do talk about it a lot. And anyone that DMs me, I tell them, pretty much key pointers. But that's something that I think I'll make an entire video on. That's a great idea. Do you believe your height gives you an advantage in lifting compared to someone who's 6 foot and above? Not really. Maybe it gives me the ability to fill out my frame more quickly because I have a smaller frame. But I mean, if you look at someone like David Lade, I feel like that physique is a lot more impressive because they're literally huge. Standing next to me, me standing next to him, I would look tiny. So, not really. What's up, man? Oh no, this is asking me if I want to be a fit as well. How to earn a pro card for someone who never competed. Easy versus competitive shows. I mean, I guess the easiest way would be to find like a super pro qualifier. I'm actually, since I'm a lighter weight bodybuilder, I competed in a super pro qualifier. So you win your class if there's enough competitors in your class and you win a pro card. So that I guess would be the easiest way. The most difficult way would be to go to one of the hardest shows like the Muscle Mayhem here in Sacramento. And in order to get your pro card, you have to win the overall. So quite a bit more difficult. Do you ever have muscle imbalances because of your injury? How do you recover and avoid any muscle compensation? My left shoulder is the one that was surgically repaired. It actually is more stable and stronger than my right now. So, I mean, because, labrums and things like that are usually due to some like genetic defect in there. So maybe my humerus is a little sharp or not shaped perfectly, or maybe it's tight. Whatever it is, the left one benefited from the surgery to a great degree, whereas now the right one is the weaker of the two. But no, I don't feel like I have any major imbalances. I think like when you bodybuild, you notice everything. So like my left chest is bigger than my right. My left bicep is rounder than my right, even though my right is my dominant side. So you start to see things like that. My left quad is leaner than my right. My right is has less lines in it. It's really weird. Why do people say it's so hard to eat all the food you have to eat when bulking? Aren't you supposed to be in a 300 to 500 calorie surplus? That's because they don't track their food, so they really don't have any idea what their intake is, and therefore they just don't know. All right, guys, I answered most of the questions. My camera battery just keeps dying, so I'm gonna call it. And I actually still have like 500 calories to eat, and it's 12:45 in the morning. So I'm gonna eat real quick and then go to bed. Might mean that my weight goes up or doesn't go down or whatever, but I'm also hungry. So, and I want to have a good training session tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm training delts. Tomorrow I'm training delts and arms. All right, cue the outro.
I've been sitting on the charts like a beach share. My last album spent 52.